Hi, you're listening to Burn Beautiful, a podcast for women ready to step into their divine feminine leadership so they can create a life of joy, health, and impact beyond their wildest dreams. Here, you'll learn how to heal stress from the inside out, reclaim your vibrant health, and master your energy so you can lead powerfully without burning out and actually enjoy the moments that matter most in this one beautiful and precious life. I'm Nicole Whitaker, burnout and leadership coach, founder of Lead Up Health, and creator of the HERS method. Welcome. Hello and welcome to the Burn Beautiful podcast. My name is Nicole Whitaker and I will be your host. I am so grateful that you're here. If you're a woman in leadership or in a helping or mission-driven profession, or if you simply want to leave the world a little better than you found it, and if you are a parent and often find yourself overwhelmed or anxious or stressed by the nonstop demands or impossible expectations placed on us as women, as parents, and as leaders, this podcast is for you. For myself and for so many ambitious women, one of the hardest parts of being an ambitious woman with a family is this. We know our time with our kids, our precious little babies, doesn't last forever, right? We want to soak in these formative years, these moments without regret, with true presence. And at the same time, we're ambitious. We're discovering who we are, what we have to offer, and we want to succeed and we want to make an impact. And these two things are beautiful things, but a lot of time it can feel like they're in conflict with each other. And the reality is achieving both requires a new definition of success and a different way to get there. This podcast is called Burn Beautiful because fire represents transformation. It represents destruction and rebirth. And burnout and this relenting fire in us can feel like it's destroying us. But when we realize that we are fire, instead of being consumed by it, we transform. This title also comes from a quote a dear colleague once shared with me, and to my initial shock, about me. Some women fear the fire, some women become it, by R.H. Sin. And let me tell you, this colleague was and still is absolute fire. And taking that as inspiration, here we choose to become the fire. And we acknowledge the fire in each other. Because when fire sees fire, we become unstoppable. And since this is our very first episode, I'm going to share a bit about me before we jump into today's topic. My background is in educational leadership. I started off in Teach for America, and before I transitioned to found Lead Up Health, I headed up high school academics on a national scale, a team that oversaw academics for 52 plus high schools across the nation. I hold certifications in yoga, integrative nutrition, and heart math coherence. And I have been interested in and on a personal development journey, quite frankly, since I have memories as early as third grade, really understanding and exploring my spirituality, my power, my energy, and how to just live this life to the full. And I am thankful that I have been on that personal development journey because I'm also a mom of three bright, fierce, loving, and powerful girls. And if you're a parent, you do not need me to tell you that the ultimate personal development journey is parenthood. I am a fire sign, so I am direct, I'm real, I have a lot of passion, and I carry a deep knowing that we are all connected and that we are here in this very specific moment of change to offer our unique gifts to the world. So here you can expect me to keep it real, to share the real challenges and really helpful tools so we can stop thinking something is wrong with us and start embracing how incredibly powerful we are. For this first episode, we're going to talk about how and why so many of us, especially women who are ambitious and go-getters, end up stressed and chronic stress and eventually burned out. I'll talk about the signs, how we unravel, and the first steps to take if you find yourself there. So let's start here. We live in a time when burnout is literally everywhere. 80% of working adults report they've experienced it. 3 out of 4 parents say that they're chronically stressed and burned out, and women make up nearly 80% of autoimmune diagnoses, which is stress related. So if you do the math, if you're a working mom, the odds are not exactly in your favor. And yet, most of us, and this was true for me, don't even realize that we're in burnout until we're totally unraveled because it's become the norm. So, I want to talk about how that unraveling actually happens so you can self identify where you are, where your leaks are, so we can plug them before we end up in total burnout. And I'm going to do that using the inverse of my HERS pillars. This is my framework for reclaiming health, energy, success, and sovereignty. And as I do that, I'm going to share some examples from my own life. For a little bit of context, I'll be using the example of a time in my life when I had three in diapers. I'd just given birth to twin infants and I had a 1.5-year-old, and I returned to a high stress job. So, the first indicator that we are shifting out of regular manageable stress into chronic stress is our physical health. So, our bodies, they're our vessel for this life. There are literally like a car, our vehicle that's going to get us from one place to the other. It's going to allow us to enjoy and love this life and succeed in what we want to do. So, when our health deteriorates, stress takes hold fast. So, some signs, some indicators that you need to attend to your health. Feeling exhausted even when you have slept, having trouble sleeping, insomnia, weight gain, exhaustion, brain fog. All of these are symbols, they're indicators that stress is something that needs to be addressed. And this can be to something internal, like hormonal changes, or our external circumstances, or both. And for me, it was both. The unraveling of my health started when I returned to this high pressure job, as I shared. And suddenly I went from this old circumstance of my life where I could go to yoga multiple times a week. I had time to make a green smoothie for myself or to go for a walk. I actually slept to zero time for myself, interrupted sleep. You can imagine three babies throughout the night, unable to sleep through the night. My eating was chaotic. I didn't have time to make a meal for myself. My brain fog. When you give birth, a woman's brain literally rewires. It actually prunes so that you can prioritize caretaking functions. And so, on top of these physical side effects that I was experiencing, I also had a shift in my relationship with my body. Like so many mothers who give birth, my body had changed and I did not like what I saw. And it was a combination of both, just avoidance, and then when I saw myself like, "Ugh, I guess this is just the way it is. It's what parenting means." And the other piece was this deep shame because I had been programmed, as many of us women have, that my worth was directly tied to how much I was desirable. And in my mind, the way I looked was the inverse of that, which meant my self worth was deteriorating as well. So this both this physical stress that I was experiencing and my inability to really understand how to shift how I was caring for myself with this new circumstance. In addition to this relationship with my body was an initial and very major disconnection from myself. I didn't feel at home in my body. I didn't feel safe in my body. Like so many of us, I was in pure survival mode. And when we feel shame toward our body instead of love, it compounds both physically and mentally in stress. The second indicator that we are shifting from manageable stress into chronic stress towards burnout is this inability to master or control our energy. So, I define energy as the ability to protect and direct our physical, emotional, and mental resources. So when we lose that, what's left is exhaustion, emotional reactivity, and brain fog. And I, at this stage in my life, had completely lost my ability to control, direct, and protect my energy, extremely emotional reacted. So at the time, my boss had left when I was on maternity leave, and I returned to find myself quietly demoted, now reporting to someone I had been previously asked to manage due to a reorg. Now, I was enraged and I absolutely blamed the system. In my mind, I knew that. And at the same time, imposter system crept in. Was I not good enough? I previously had received a promotion. Did they decide didn't deserve that? Was I not able to manage that? And at home, something had totally changed as well. I had three babies needing me, but I only had two arms and I had to go to work for 40 hours a week. So I felt like I was not giving my babies what they needed either. And so I felt like a failure in both parts of my life. So instead of protecting my energy, I gave it away, and I gave it away by falling into victim mode. I was mad. I was upset at my husband for not understanding and then taking on more of the emotional load. I was upset at my boss, at the system, at the patriarchy. And it's not that that these circumstances weren't real. They were very real. And I want to validate you absolutely right here and now if you have experienced any of these circumstances or if you are at the moment. But what was happening for me is that I hadn't realized that I had slipped into victim mode. I was negative Nancy. I complained all the time. I only saw what was wrong. And most of us don't notice when we're in this pattern or giving our power away to circumstances. And it shows up for all of us, by the way. It still shows up for me in moments throughout the day. It's our awareness that we change. But when we are emotionally reactive, when we're impatient, when we are numbing out via whatever it is, social media, grabbing that glass of wine, when we want in our hearts to be physically present, but we're in our mind checking things off in our list, we're working past hours. These are all signs that we have forfeited and have lost some of that mastery over our energy. And the result is a disconnection from personal power. And it is one of the fastest paths into chronic stress. So, this third pillar, this third signal that we are shifting away from manageable stress into chronic stress and ultimately towards unraveling and burnout is a misaligned definition of success. And so, in the HERS pillars, the R stands for redefining success and then realigning our career, which, by the way, does not necessarily mean changing careers. And so when I talk about this misalignment, it is when our outer definition of success or how we are approaching success, what our calendars look like, what we're going after in our life doesn't match our inner definition of success. And at first, this can honestly just feel like uneasiness or confusion. It's not like gonna blare in waving flags saying you have this new definition of success. And so for working parents, this can look like feeling an inner constant tug of war between career and family. This can look like overworking, boredom, or even just a feeling of like, I have everything, but something is still missing, or why doesn't work light me up anymore? Or what is my role here? There are many layers. It can get existential. So for me at this time, after my first child, I honestly didn't care about work. I just wanted to be with my baby. But after my twins, I really started missing that meaningful impact of my work and education. Layer that on with imposter syndrome, brain fog, that silent emotion, and my desire to not be an absent mom, to be there for all of my kids' formative years. I was deeply confused about what success meant. And here's some science behind it. Women's brains literally rewire after childbirth. So this is called synaptic pruning. It's when these unnecessary brain cells die off and we become more attuned to things we need as a parent, like empathy, caregiving. And this is how it's supposed to be like this. This is not a bad thing. But it also means when we return to work 3 months later and we're sitting there off camera, but pumping on a Zoom call, our brain is not exactly wired for that meeting. It's not exactly primed for strategic problem solving. And for me, imposter syndrome, right? I felt like I couldn't find words, etc. And it really took me years to crystallize a new definition of success and what that actually looks like physically. So, first, I was able to do that within my career role. I think if you were to talk to anyone who worked with me, they can really identify that last year I was there in my role, I managed and led very differently because it was from my inner definition of leadership, not something external. I knew how to set boundaries, and succeed. And ultimately, this did lead to me leaving my career and founding Lead Up Health. But honestly, I learned this truth the hard way. So when your calendar, that's how you spend your hours, doesn't reflect your inner definition of success, disconnection from self is inevitable, which means stress, chronic stress is inevitable if this goes unaddressed. So we cannot ignore these underlying feelings of uneasiness. It means something is misaligned. This last piece is loss of sovereignty. So ultimate true leadership of self. So when your health, your energy, and your definition of success unravels, you lose sovereignty, right? The supreme authority over your own life. My rock bottom, I'll tell you a quick rock bottom story, came on a day that was unfortunately typical during that time. I had stumbled through meetings all day because of exhaustion, couldn't find my words. I snapped at my husband from overwhelm of parenting and carrying the emotional load. And I found myself late at night Googling whether or not I should do the cry it out method. And in that moment, at the moment, I was also reading Untamed by Glennon Doyle, highly recommend. And I kind of just woke up and literally threw my phone across the room because I was like, Google does not know my child. I know my child. I had completely lost connection with my gut, my intuition. Even though it was screaming, I didn't understand what it was or how to listen to it. And that's when I went into my closet, locked myself in there for 5 minutes of silence. And that was the first moment I began tapping into what Glennon Doyle calls your inner knowing. And this was really the first step back to myself. It's where I started doing some deep work to untangle my programming and rebuilding trust in my body and my mind and my intuition. And that is the unraveling. The good news is if you've been here or if you're here right now, it's also the beginning of your reweaving. In the next episode, we're going to take a deep dive into stress and burnout for women, what it really is, how it works in the body, what the research says, and how to begin to shift out of that more in depth. Because if you're constantly living in a state of stress, it will be nearly impossible to step fully into your power, your leadership, and your joy. From there, we're going to go step by step through the HERS pillars: holistic health, energy mastery, redefining success and realigning your career, and self-sovereignty, so you can step by step move out of chronic stress and back into the beautiful, impactful life and career that you're capable of. But I don't want to leave you hanging. So I do want to give you the exact first steps that I started with and that you can take right now to begin exiting that cycle of chronic stress today. The first, and potentially the most important, is that you want to start sitting in silence with yourself for 5 minutes a day. Phone free, distraction free. Everyone can find 5 minutes. You can sit there silently. You do not have to meditate, or you can ask yourself a question and listen for an answer. You know, what should I do with my career? Why do I feel so anxious? What is this anxiety trying to tell me? Any question. The point is that when you sit in true silence, even for just 5 minutes a day, you're going to start hearing your own inner voice again. And when you do that, when you start to reconnect with your inner self, your stress is going to slowly unravel. The second, and you've heard it 1,000 times, is you need to move your body and think it. I started with 15 minutes of movement a day. It does not matter what you do. It doesn't matter how imperfect it is. The more you move your body, the more you're going to reconnect with your body's wisdom. You're going to be able to be embodied, and your body, again, is your vehicle for this life. So you want to begin treating it like the incredible temple that it is. The third is to look in the mirror and say, I love you. Now stick with me. This can feel wildly uncomfortable. This practice comes from Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life, my very first self-help book. And everything begins with self-love, literally everything. And so no matter how uncomfortable it is, no matter how much you don't believe yourself, if you can look yourself in the eyes every day and say, I love you, I really love you, that self-love is going to change everything. And last but not least, don't forget to meet yourself with compassion wherever you are. Wherever you are right now is a part of your journey. If you're in complete burnout, the goal is to recognize, to zoom out and look at your life as a whole. Know that you've gotten yourself out of tough places before. Know that when you look back on hard times, you can see why that happened, and just surround yourself with love and compassion. No shame, no judgment. These may sound simple, but they are the foundation. And this is how I began to come back to myself. And ultimately, this turned into a massive transformation. And this is how you can begin to come back to yourself. Well, I had so much fun. I hope that you did too. Thank you so much for joining me on this very first episode. If something resonated, please share it with someone who might need it today, and make sure you follow the podcast so you don't miss what's coming next. And until next time, keep burning beautiful. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this episode sparked something in you, subscribe, and I'd be so grateful if you take a moment to rate and review the show. It is the most powerful way to help other women find it. And if you know someone who is struggling or on the edge of burnout or simply wants to lean from wholeness, send this their way. Let's grow this movement together. To get exclusive insights, tools, and behind-the-scenes support, join the Hers Insider list at www.leaduphealth.com. And if you're ready to explore working together, whether through coaching or consulting, you can book a free consultation right from the site. Until next time, burn beautiful loves.